Have you ever had that feeling like you're being singled out somehow, or maybe experiencing odd physical things you just, well, can't quite put your finger on? It's unsettling, isn't it?
It really is. And today we're going deep into a set of claims from an audio recording that takes those feelings and builds this really elaborate structure around them.
Exactly. We're talking about what the speaker calls electronic harassment. We're going to unpack the claims and, maybe more importantly, the defense strategies they propose.
Yeah, what's interesting here is the detail. It's not just a vague idea. The speaker lays out this whole model step by step of how this harassment supposedly happens, and then specific things they say you can do about it at each stage.
So our mission today is really just to map out that framework, understand the speaker's logic, how they connect the dots between the alleged attacks and the defenses they suggest. We're basing this purely on what's in that recording.
We're essentially guides here, looking at the blueprint they've drawn up. We're not judging its validity, just explaining how the speaker seems to think it all fits together.
Okay, let's get into it. The speaker starts off mentioning a weapon system, right? And they even point to another source for the physics side of things. But really foundational to this whole idea is something they call a physical mapping program.
Right, this physical mapping program. As they describe it, it's the first piece of the puzzle. It's supposedly how this weapon system finds and, well, affects the target.
And they do say it could affect other things, objects and such, but the real focus is the human body.
Exactly. The primary concern is how it interacts with people. It sort of echoes concepts like remote sensing, but the specific claims here go, well, quite a bit further than standard applications.
And then comes a really crucial twist in their narrative. The speaker claims the effects of this weapon system are massively boosted, like hundreds of times stronger, because of something else entirely.
Poison.
Poison. They argue that the people being targeted are also being routinely poisoned.
Yeah, and it's not presented as a separate problem. It's framed as absolutely vital to making the weapon system work effectively. The implication is, without the poison, the tech's effects might be almost unnoticeable.
So, a kind of synergy between a chemical attack and a technological one.
That seems to be the idea presented, a necessary combination for the described effects.
Okay, so how does this supposed poisoning actually happen according to the speaker? They lay out a few stages. Stage one is delivery.
And the delivery method is described as being very covert. It's supposedly done by these ordinary-looking people termed PERS, who you wouldn't suspect.
Through everyday contact, right? Like shaking hands, touching things someone else touched, money, door handles.
Even using children, apparently, to make contact without raising suspicion. It paints this picture where potential harm could come from seemingly normal, everyday interactions.
Making the mundane feel threatening.
That's the implication in this first stage. Then, after delivery, the model talks about absorption through the skin, transdermal absorption.
Which is a real thing in medicine. Getting substances through the skin, but usually with specific formulations.
Right. And here, the idea is that the poison is mixed with something that helps it get through the skin and into the bloodstream. Interestingly, the speaker kind of leaves that open.
Yeah, they actually pose it as a question, suggesting maybe medical experts would know what kind of chemical could do that.
Which is noteworthy. It suggests some speculation on their part about the exact mechanism. The next stage in their model brings in a neurotoxin.
A neurotoxin acting like a carrier, supposedly, to get the poison into the nervous system itself.
And the nervous system is, of course, central to sensation and bodily control. Neurotoxins, by definition, disrupt that system.
The examples given are pretty dramatic, too. Things like LSD or even rattlesnake venom are mentioned as possibilities. But the key point is targeting the nervous system, how we feel things.
Precisely. And that sets up the fourth stage, which loops back more directly to the electromagnetic aspect. This involves what they call an electromagnetic aggregate.
An aggregate. What's that supposed to be?
It's described as another substance, maybe colloids or aerosols, with tiny particles, nanochips, metal, silica acting like nanocapacitors.
Okay, nanocapacitors, like tiny energy storage bits.
Sort of. The idea is once these particles are in the nervous system, they become reactive to electromagnetic waves. They respond to the weapon system's energy.
So the poison helps get these reactive particles into the right place, the nervous system.
That seems to be the sequence described. And the final stage, stage 5, is the alleged damage. The theory is these particles build up in specific organs or tissues. And then when hit by the electromagnetic waves, they vibrate and cause physical damage at the tissue level.
Wow, okay, that's a very intricate model. From mapping to poison delivery, absorption, nervous system transport, reactive particles, and finally vibration damage.
It is. And this whole complex sequence is the foundation for the defense strategies the speaker then proposes. They address each layer.
Right. So let's talk defense. Starting with that first layer, the poison delivery. What's the advice?
It's pretty straightforward based on their premise. Avoid contact. Avoid touching strangers. Avoid handling things they might have handled: money, shopping carts, door handles.
Even being careful where you walk barefoot, like public showers or pools.
That's mentioned too. Basically, limit physical interaction and shared surfaces as much as possible. It's all about reducing that initial exposure risk, according to this model.
Okay, but what if contact happens? The next layer was absorption through the skin.
So the defense is physical barriers.
Yes.
Gloves, long sleeves, long pants. Trying to create a shield directly on the skin to block that transdermal route.
Makes sense if you accept the premise. Then, if the poison does get in...
Detoxification, that's the next line of defense proposed. And here, the speaker gets quite specific about products.
Yeah, I noticed that. They mentioned C products, though the source isn't named, and then several things apparently from Infowars.com, like nascent iodine and deep cleanse.
Flaxseed oil is also mentioned, specifically for the blood-brain barrier, they claim. And then more general suggestions like detox teas and niacin.
So a mix of specific branded products and general wellness approaches.
Exactly. Now, moving deeper into the model, to the nervous system where that electromagnetic aggregate is supposed to be active, the defenses become more technical. Shielding and countermeasures.
Shielding, what kind?
The recommendation is layered shielding. Copper, then a dielectric insulator, something that doesn't conduct electricity well, and then another metal, like aluminum or steel.
Like building a little Faraday cage for yourself.
Sort of, yeah, that's the principle. They also bring up radio jammers, but cautiously.
Cautiously how?
Well, acknowledging the difficulties. You'd need to know the right frequencies, have enough power, make it portable, not to mention the legal side of jamming signals.
Right, jamming is usually pretty restricted. What else?
They talk about something called ray chips from a site, humanfirewall.com.
Ray chips, what are they supposed to do?
Described as small circular things. The speaker claims they found them effective when put on a cell phone, though not too close to the body. The idea seems to be that these chips attract the harmful waves, drawing them away.
Attract them rather than block them. Interesting.
Yeah, that distinction seems important to the claim. And finally, if damage has already occurred, the last layer of defense is about repair.
More product recommendations here.
Yes. DNA Force, again, cited as from Infowars.com, and omega-3s, like from fish oil or that flaxseed oil mentioned earlier, for tissue repair properties.
Okay, so the whole defense strategy mirrors the attack model. Avoidance, skin barriers, detox, shielding or jamming, and then repair supplements.
It's a multi-pronged approach, definitely, completely built on their initial, very specific model of the attack.
And the audio doesn't just stop there, does it? There's a kind of call to action at the end.
That's right. The speaker urges people who find these methods helpful to, quote, fight the enemy, suggesting things like taking legal action or just spreading the word, raising awareness. They frame the targeted individual as being in a kind of beta test.
A beta test for what?
The implication seems to be for broader control systems or weapons. There's this sense of urgency, like people need to resist collectively.
And there was that final thought, too, about living in a pre-matrix.
Yes, a more philosophical closing, suggesting this is all happening before some larger system of control takes hold, and the goal is to prevent further tyranny. It adds this broader ideological layer.
Okay, so let's just recap this deep dive. We've walked through this really detailed model of alleged electronic harassment presented in the audio.
Right. A model involving mapping, poisoning through several stages delivery, absorption, neurotoxin carrier, electromagnetic aggregate, and then tissue damage via vibration.
And then a parallel defense strategy for each stage. Avoidance, barriers, detox, shielding, countermeasures like those ray chips, and finally repair supplements, often with specific product mentions. Plus that call to action.
And it's really important for us to stress, again, our goal here was just to outline and understand the information as presented in that source material.
Absolutely. We've been acting as guides through the speaker's narrative and reasoning, not evaluating the claims ourselves.
The claims are certainly unusual and potentially quite alarming if you feel you're experiencing things you can't explain.
It definitely brings up a lot of thoughts about, technology, biology, perception, how they all interact.
Which leads us to a final question for you, the listener, to think about. Having heard this intricate model, this whole system of alleged attack and defense laid out, what specific parts of it strike you as the most surprising? Or maybe, what aspects raise the biggest questions for you as you reflect on all this?